Welcome back to the channel, everybody. It is I, your host, Mr. Sean, and today we have more of r/Neckbeard stories. We're going to get to that here in a second, but first, just remember I use this channel to promote my business, Chimera Miniatures, where I sell all kinds of minis. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, as well as check the links to my miniatures. Maybe even buy one, or at the very least, share them around. Maybe you know someone who likes to buy minis. The more minis I sell, the more videos I make. Story number 1 today comes from user Brit Howland and is called Clingy Neckbeard. This happened 15-ish years ago. I'm not sure if he's really a neckbeard or if maybe he was just really clingy, but I thought it'd fit here anyways. I, 30 female, 15 at the time, met this guy, Neckbeard, NB for short, online. I don't remember if it was on Facebook or on Gaia Online, but it was one of the two. I was a lonely, quiet, reserved kid, so online friendships were my only source of friendship. We talked on and off for a few years, always planning on meeting but never did. He only lived a couple hours away from me, but I was a teenager. Yeah, meeting up with online friends in real life can be kinda weird. I had a friend who met a girl playing World of Warcraft, and she was 2 states over. They were gonna both basically drive and meet in the middle of the state between us, and we're gonna just hook up all weekend. And that actually did end up happening. She turned out to be a real girl, but the thing that always made me laugh is that he had to come up with this elaborate lie to his parents and family that he was going to go camping, but there was going to be Wi-Fi service in the campground. So if they saw him online, he was on the campground. Because even though it was just for a weekend, and they both were meeting up and going to be banging, presumably for quite a bit of the time, still had to be on World of Warcraft, still had to be on AIM, and that was just always kind of funny to me that they still couldn't be offline even when meeting each other IRL for the first time. Also, we kind of were assuming it was going to turn out to be a guy and he was going to get himself murdered, but that didn't happen. Then I met my boyfriend at the time, husband now, we'll call him A, and stopped talking to NB until the year in between high school and college. I worked at a call center and made friends with this girl, S, who, it turned out, was dating NB. Small world. Yeah, very small world. That almost seems like this story could be fake, but hey, no judgments. NB convinced S to drive me the couple hours to meet him and hang out with the both of them. I didn't think this was a big deal at the time. I was 18-ish. But A didn't want me to go alone, so he hopped in the car with us. I can see why you married this guy, because, that's awesome. Go A. When we got to NB's, definitely confirmed neckbeard in looks at this point, fedora and chains included, I immediately felt oddly uncomfortable. He introduced me to his parents, his pets, etc. But he was ignoring A and S the entire time, and he kept trying to get me alone. He finally managed after A went down to the car to get something, and I was on the receiving end of the longest, most uncomfortable hug I've ever experienced in my life. NB also was going on about how much he missed me, etc., etc. We didn't stay long because S and I had to work the next day, and we left. That is so weird that this random coworker who happens to be dating your old internet friend he convinces her to drive you down. You don't stay for very long. This is weird. I think I feel really bad for your friend, for your coworker. I'm sure as soon as NB found out that she knew you, that he's like, oh my god, this is my chance to get with my old internet crush. I will cast my girlfriend to the side for the sake of fantasy internet poon. A year or so later, I started college, a few months after getting married. NB emailed me, and my email signature had my married last name plus the college course I was taking. He immediately began questioning me on what my signature meant. Me, being kind of oblivious, just replied that for school-related emails they wanted the signature to say what course we were taking, but he replied back that he meant my last name. NB, you got yourself a girlfriend. You could have let this flame go, but you couldn't. Oh, so cringe. I was excited to tell him that I had gotten married, and that I was so happy. NB had been my friend at one point, and we talked a lot, so I wanted to tell him the good news. That's because you're a normal person, OP. After a couple more emails where he told me him and S broke up, I didn't hear anything. What do you want to bet that they broke up because NB couldn't get over his crush for you and kept telling her to, help him meet up with you more? A couple of years after that, I got an email from NB asking how everything was going and was I still with A. I told him great, and yes, I was still with A. God damn it, NB, you gotta let this go! This fully grown adult is holding on to a random flame that he had from an internet friend in high school. I think the worst thing to happen to this guy was the fact that his girlfriend ended up working with you, because if he hadn't had contact, if he hadn't had that potential back in, he would have always probably held a flame for you, but he would have moved on with his life. Oh, this guy is down so bad. For someone he's only met in person once, I bet in his mind you're still the same way you were at 15 as well. Something tells me this guy stopped maturing at 15. I heard nothing back. At this point, I thought it was kind of weird, and I mentioned it to A, and he said that NB was checking in to see if I was single yet. I thought A was just seeing it in the wrong light, but whatever. After that one conversation, we didn't mention NB again. OP, you got yourself a catch. A knows what's up. I mean, he has since the very beginning. Cue to a few years after, when I randomly get an email from NB asking if I was still with A. Again. I told him yes, and asked him how he was doing. He told me he split up with someone, so he was kind of depressed. I told him that he would be fine and that there was someone out there for everyone. Platitudes, of course, though I do really believe that. Then he goes on about how he let his soulmate slip through his fingers and that the girl for him was already with someone else. I bet every time you got an email from him, OP, was some girl had left him, and now he's like, oh, I miss the girl that I could have had if I'd only made a move when I was 15 years old. I mean, especially since you married your first boyfriend, he probably thought, damn, if I'd only moved sooner. I had a friend with that mentality once upon a time. We had this friend who asked this girl out, and to hear my other friend tell it, because this guy who asked the girl out, eventually that ended up marrying her. They have 2 kids now. They're very happy. But apparently, those 2 friends were talking once and mentioned how attractive they found this girl. And, maybe I could ask her out sometime. And the guy that ended up marrying her goes, nah, man, dibs. And according to their logic at the time, apparently dibs meant he had 2 weeks to ask her out. And if he didn't, she was fair game again. So he asked her out. They started dating. Apparently, they broke up when he was a senior in high school and she was a sophomore briefly. And then they got back together and got married after she finished college. But even though she didn't even like the other friend at all, he was kind of a douche, he still for the longest time insisted that if he had just called dibs first, she would have ended up married to him. I bet that is definitely in B's mentality. Well, then I kind of believed A. Yeah, A's been right this entire time, OP. You should have listened. I get A to come read the email thread, and he told me to tell NB to stop messaging me. I don't like confrontation, so I didn't want to. A messaged NB on Facebook and told him to stop messaging me, that we're happy and not going to separate, so he could stop his check-in emails. NB denied it, of course, but I haven't heard from him since, so it worked. Maybe A was just reading it wrong and that wasn't NB's intention, but it was still weird. Oof, I just realized how long this was, but 15 years is a long time to cover, lol. Thanks for reading. Edit to add, since I didn't mention it, NB was only a couple of years older than me. So wait. I was assuming that NB was the same age as you when you guys met. Him being a couple years older meant he could have very well been an adult who fell in love with a 15-year-old and was pining over the fact that you met someone else and ended up marrying them, and then every time one of his relationships didn't work out, he would message you just to, quote-unquote, check in. Yeah, this guy, he has the emotional maturity of like a 12-year-old. You are his one that got away, and he's not been able to move on from that. But the funny thing is that it doesn't sound like he ever had a chance to begin with. Though I think the real champ of this is A, your husband, because, I mean, right from the start, he could tell this guy was up to no good. I mean, the fact that as soon as A was out of sight and the one time you actually met him, he gave you a super long, uncomfortable hug, who knows what he would have tried had your boyfriend not been there. And that meeting is even more cringe because his girlfriend was there. It wasn't even like he was single and ready to mingle, like he was in a relationship. But the second he got a whiff of you, he was ignoring his own girlfriend, which is probably why they ended up breaking up. He probably talked about you all the time, and she probably got fucking sick of the fact that her boyfriend was in love with some girl she randomly worked with rather than his own girlfriend. All right, I think everybody dodged a bullet on this one. Sorry for the interruption, guys, but it's Mr. Sean, and I have something I am very happy to share with all of you. I am thrilled to announce that we have hit the goal of 50 subscribers to the channel. I want to thank everybody who's been with me since I started making these videos, as well as anyone who has joined recently. As you well know, I made this channel as a way to pitch and advertise my business, Chimera Miniatures. So the more subscribers I get, the more people see these videos, the more minis I can potentially sell. So your subscribing, your commenting, sharing, it means the most. And as a way to say thank you, as promised, we are doing a miniature giveaway. On screen, you'll see a picture of the miniature you can potentially win. I like to call it the Good Shepherd. If any of you were hoping for one of my not safe for work minis, I apologize, but for legal reasons, I cannot do that, give one of those away as a giveaway. While I do not know which video I have thrown this announcement into, I do know that I will be posting said video at 7 a.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday, May 10th. To enter to win this, all you have to do is make sure that you are subscribed to the channel and that you comment on this video the phrase, "The Good Shepherd." A winner will be randomly selected from any subscriber who commented on this video. Again, the comment is "The Good Shepherd," and you have until 7 a.m. on Wednesday, May 17th to do so. Please be aware that in order for me to send you the mini, you must have a mailing address in the United States, as I don't know if there will be any legal issues that might come from shipping overseas, so we are limiting this to subscribers in the United States. Once a winner has been determined, I will contact you directly. You can send me where you would like the mini to be sent, and it should arrive in a few days. I'll even send you a tracking number. While the value of any of my creations are speculative at best, I would say that if I were to sell this on my eBay or Etsy, I would be asking at least $25 to $30 for this piece, and I will send it to you absolutely free as a thank you to everyone for helping me get my videos and by extension my minis out there where everyone can see them. Again, your support means the most to me. So if you're in the United States and you'd like this mini, The Good Shepherd, for free, just remember to subscribe to the channel and comment on this video the phrase "The Good Shepherd" before 7 a.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday, May 17th. I hope you enjoy the rest of the video today. Our next story comes from CL Phantom Hive 1214 and is entitled Short Story, Neckbeard Was Harassing an Employee. So I was at a candy store, Lolly and Pops, earlier today, and this overweight neckbeard with a Sailor Moon shirt and actual fedora was talking to an employee really loudly. He was pointing at her pins and asking about them. They were anime pins, I think, and he was all in her personal space. When I say point, I mean he was touching her pins. I stood nearby and listened to the conversation for a few seconds, and she flashed the "help me" eyes at me, and I was like, yeah, okay. So I stepped in and asked if she could help me because I wanted to try something. She was very relieved and did give me a free piece of chocolate. You can get free samples if you ask in general. This wasn't special or anything, just a good excuse to get her away from him. The neckbeard wandered off and she went to work the cash register after that. An hour or two later that day, I was at the Barnes & Noble nearby the mall, and that same neckbeard walked into the store, and I watched him bother a few people in the manga section for a few seconds before losing interest with everyone and leaving. There wasn't really a need to step in this time because he was bothering customers that pretty promptly told him so, and the interactions were only a few sentences. Alright, that one was pretty short and sweet, but it actually kind of reminds me of two different things. One, if you want to talk to people at, say, like a candy store, you need to know, like, I don't know, something about candy. Now, there's a factoid, not factoid, that's a false fact. There's a little story I like to tell people when I'm in a candy store, usually not like the worker themselves, is something I tell my friends, and it's because my father worked for the M&M Mars company, and that's how I know this story. So if you're familiar with what a munch bar is, which is essentially a candy bar made out of peanut brittle, the story I like to tell is that the reason the munch bar still exists is there is one tiny conveyor belt line that still makes them, and the company will never stop making them because that was the favorite candy bar of the company's founder, Forrest Mars Sr. So they make a small amount, they still sell them in stores, and they don't intend to stop because that is their founder's favorite candy. I was actually at a specialty candy store in Columbus, Ohio, and I was with a friend and I was telling them that, and the girl behind the counter overheard us and goes, "Wow, that's really interesting. And my buddy told me afterwards, he's like, wow, you could totally use that as a line to pick up chicks at the candy store, which I really never thought to do. But like, don't be up in people's personal space. Don't be touching them, touching their like things, even if it is anime. But it's like, you know what? Have interesting stories to tell that might make people find you interesting. Again, I can't guarantee something like that'll work, but it's got to be better than what the Neckbeard was trying. It also, the end part of this story reminded me of a time my fiance and I went to the manga section at Barnes & Noble, and this guy was walking around blaring anime music from like a little like belt speaker he had, and I think he was getting annoyed that girls weren't like, that wasn't somehow attracting the women there to him, even though like there were a few women there, but my fiance included, they were all there with their significant others. But like, yeah, if you want people to approach you, if you want them to interact with you, give them a reason to. Don't be pushy, up in their space, and annoying. Alright guys, I think we've got time for one more story in this video, and so we're going to read one that comes from user I Still Dream in Indigo, and is entitled, Thanks for Nothing, You Greasy Jerk. Another long one. You've been warned. So back in high school, I took a few college classes at a local community college. If you read my other post on here, yes, it's that same school. This was a few years before that story, though. I feel like I did read that story in a previous video, but I don't remember. Your username is familiar. Anywhoops, one of the classes I took was Intro to Theater. My teacher in that class was a kindly, flamboyant, older gentleman that made the class fun. He taught a few other theater-centric classes. One of his other students attended those. I only took his intro class. Don't ask me why the other student needed an intro to theater class if he already attended the others. I tended to avoid this guy. You'll find out why in a second. I'm sure we will. My first day of class, he walked in. We can call him Jay. He was aggressively unwashed. His aroma reached me from across the room. He sported sweets, socks with slide sandals, and the color skin God usually reserves for deep-sea creatures who never see sunlight. A prize, for sure. He walks in and flops into one of the desks, a smelly king in his drop-tile, plaster-ceiling castle. The teacher greeted him like they were old friends. Jay grunted in reply. Why do I get the sense that Jay just wants to, hit on freshman theater girls? Well, let's be honest, probably because he wants to sleep with them. I don't know if this is universal, but the hierarchy of sluttiness, at least when I was in high school, was at the top of, the sluttiest on the pyramid were the band kids, then it was the theater kids, then it was choir, and then it was strings. But to be in band, you need talent, so, he probably is like, I'll settle for a theater girl. My brain blurred him out after the class started. I sat beside a very sweet lady who would bring candy into class and share with me. The class was enjoyable. The teacher was a character. It was good times. Then the teacher gave us our midterm assignment. We had to team up and do a PowerPoint presentation on different cultures as theater through history. 3 of us to a team. Can you guess who the teacher teamed me up with? A very nice other girl in class who I'd spoken to twice, and Jay. The other girl, who we will refer to as M, wasn't there the day the teacher announced the teams. So when he called for us to sit and brainstorm until the end of class, I got to sit and get a full whiff of Jay in all his glory. Seriously, what is it with neckbeards and not bathing? What is it? What point are they trying to make? That they're gross? That hygiene is a social construct? Society hates a natural man? Some other out of left field thing? But then the majority of these people would bemoan a woman's unshaved legs. The self-awareness doesn't exist. I've talked about this before, and OP, I think it's a combination of things. One, I think there are some who truly believe that not showering will increase their quote-unquote pheromones and natural musk, but I also think it's because these people feel invisible, and they want people to have to notice them. So if women won't give them a second glance, they're gonna make their smell linger in their nostrils. Who knows, there might even be some idea that once they're smelling him, he's technically inside of them, and that's the closest they're gonna ever get to being inside of a woman. I digress. Not wanting to be rude because Mama didn't raise me that way, I surreptitiously held my hand over my nose and tried to breathe only when it was absolutely necessary. I tried to brainstorm with Jay. I promise, I tried. But the teacher gave us the option of Russian, Greek, and ancient Japanese theater to study and report on. Jay pounced on the Japanese end. Pounced. I chose Greek, and that defaulted Russian for M. I envied her that day she was gone, but I wanted credit for the assignment. Attendance for the class counted towards our final grades. Attendance for the midterm oral report not only affected your own grade, it affected that of your teammates as well. If 2 of you showed up to present and 1 didn't, your final grade on that assignment took a 33% hit. Not fair, but nothing to be done about it. I always hated stuff like this. Like, I remember I took a class on sociology that ended with a group presentation, and the day of, one of our guys who had been there the entire class just didn't show up, and we didn't have his part of the presentation. So what we ended up having to do, and thankfully the professor was understanding, one of us had to type it up. That ended up falling on me, and I actually met that professor at a local McDonald's to hand it in to him so we could get credit for the part that we would have just lost credit on because this guy decided to not show up to the final. Like, I understand that group projects are a thing, but when you're paying to take a class, someone else just deciding to be a fuck-up should not affect your grade and your efforts. Because at that point, you're essentially wasting money at no fault of your own. I did my part of the assignment and emailed it to my teammates. They each did the same, and we spliced them into one cohesive presentation. I had to admit, for his aura of careless jerk and unbrushed teeth, Jay came through, which was more than I expected of him. I had done a good job on my part, Em had done well on hers. Jay's above-average interest in Japan seemed to be paying off. I was confident I'd get a good grade. Cut to the day of the presentations. Jay isn't there. Just didn't show up. Fighting the outrage and trying not to swear, I gave my presentation. I had no idea what the plan was for when Jay's part came up. Em and I hadn't had time to plan before the class started, and I guess the possibility of him flaking out somehow didn't occur to either of us. Em took charge of the situation, though. She breezed through the part of ancient Japanese theater, faked it as best she could, and I jumped in to help with what feeble information I could offer. The teacher either took pity on us or was familiar with Jay's shithead ways, because he gave us both 80 instead of 67. He didn't mention Jay being a no-show, and neither of us brought it up. Honestly, kudos to your professor, because he understood that you guys made the best of a bad situation. You could have just gone, well, he didn't show up, what do we do? But you tried, you put in the effort, and he rewarded you for that, and I think that's great. Later that afternoon, as I was heading out, I saw Jay in the cafeteria, sitting on a table on his phone. Not a care in the world. I knew then he'd been planning to flake out the whole time. He never intended to make it easy on me or Em, though I don't know what she did to risk a bad grade. Me? I guess I insulted His Majesty by not wanting to gag to death on his pungent scent. More fool me. Too long didn't read? Stinkman I get teamed up with flakes out of an assignment that affects the whole team's grade. Is a jerk. You know, OP, the other thing, probably, considering he was in the other classes, he probably didn't need that class for credits, and just decided it would be really funny to make sure 2 females got a bad grade. It probably was some kind of power trip for him. And that's going to be our video today, guys. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as well as check the links, maybe buy a mini, and if you have a story you'd like me to narrate on the channel, be sure to go to my own personal subreddit, r/Mr. Sean Reads Stories, and post it there. Maybe I'll read it. If you can't think of a comment, just type His Majesty, so I know you got all the way to the end. But until next time, everybody, this is Chimera Miniatures, I'm Mr. Sean, and I hope you alpha great day and an even beta tomorrow. Bye-bye.